Hey guys, this is Sanjo
Hey, Marla.
and we're with Lifestyle by Marla. We're back with you with another video of PTSD and
And how it affects our lives,
like
how it's brought us to where we are today.
yeah. We wanted to take a moment to actually talk about like how I dealt with crowds, any type of crowd after we came back, how it affected me from my point of view, and how it affected Marla from her point of view.
I did want to say we took a couple weeks off because of fall break, but we are back at it and we are super excited to be doing these videos again. But as far as the crowds go, like it was a huge mental change for me because I love people. I love to be around people. I love to be in the center of it all and get messy and I like concerts. I like large. I don't mind large crowds. Like it's not anything that bothers me. But when he came home from Afghanistan, if you watch the first week, you can kind of find out what had happened to him. And when he came home from deployment, it was like a whole new world because I was like, what? Like, you don't want to even go out to eat. You don't even want to, like, what? You don't want to have people over? Like, what is happening? So that was interesting. It was an interesting change.
Yeah. So to go off of that, I didn't know that I was actually feeling the things I was feeling. I didn't know I was going to be dealing with the things I was dealing, honestly, because growing up, I was more or less the life of the party. I loved hanging out with people. I loved making people laugh. It was enjoying life. I mean, America was my oyster, and so. Even when we first met back in homeschool band years ago, I mean, I made the best out of everything. It was just who I was. So this was a complete character change. This is a complete night and day difference.
And with that being said, when he that's who I fell in love with, this happy-go-lucky person that goes out and totally lives is the life of the party and didn't really shy away from crowds. So having fallen in love with that, and that's like his personality and who he is, well, when he came back from Afghanistan, it was a completely different story. So how did we navigate through that? What does our life look like now opposed to what it did then? We're gonna hit up on that, and it's one of those things like, wow, like it's just different. It's a different way of how we have to live now, and it took a lot of understanding and discipline on my part as well.
And again, this is a journey of discovery. Remember, so if you went through an event, it doesn't, as long as if it was traumatic, you went through the event, you're making discovery as to what's changed. Mm-hmm. It's like those old picture games that you used to find what's wrong or what's out of place inside that picture, but you have to really search for it. Well, that's our real life. That's what really happened to us. And I remember, I think the first time she said she suggested going out, I was like, I said no, and it was kind of okay, but I was also in my own bubble. Like, I didn't really understand. I didn't really rationalize or work through why I didn't want to go out. I just it must be because I don't really want to go out. Right. And that's where I said
it wasn't a matter of oh, this happened to me in Afghanistan and I no longer want to be around people. It wasn't like that kind of process. It was just no, I don't want to go out, which in turn was well, why don't you want to go out? And he's like, I just don't want to. And it was, it became a kind of like a wedge in our marriage because we were, he didn't know why he didn't want to go out anymore. He just knew that was not a safe place for him anymore. So, it was a huge learning thing for us.
Yeah. So instinctively, I made decisions to preserve my life because I'm still working off of the high, hyper aggressive, attentive alertness to the environment I came from. And honestly, all I really wanted to do was be in a locked box in a room and just be like, okay, this is the four walls of my safe place, and anyone that comes in through that point of entry will get it. Without my permission, without letting me know ahead of time, that's what's happening. And I think one of those things along the way, how I started discovering these things was when we started actually going out. Like we did go to the park, we did go out to eat, and as we went to these places, I started making discoveries like I really don't feel safe. She used to love, what was that restaurant? Olive Garden, right?
Yes.
Loved it. And
those breadsticks, honey.
so, the pasta. Anyways, so she used to love that. So we go out to the restaurant, and I noticed a change in me because Marla likes to, like she said, she likes to be in it. Yeah. So she'd like to sit in the middle.
I like the experience.
When everyone walked in, you saw Marla.
Yes.
And
eating
everyone,
my breadsticks.
Everyone sat around Marla.
Eating my breadsticks and my pasta.
And that's what the center stage looks like. And I'm like, I don't want to sit there because there's too many places I can't predict the, avenues of approach. So I'm like, no, why don't we sit in that corner? 2 corners, and I'm kitty corner. I could see a big fan of area. I could look at it like this, where I'm in this corner right here. I could see everything just by simply turning my head a little bit, And I made sure I was close to the exit, but I was in front of the windows. And to Marla, that was like, well, why can't we sit there? What's wrong with that area?
Right.
Like,
it became a source of irritation for me because I'm like, why can't we just sit where the stinking waiter puts us? Like, because there were times where we would sit in areas as we were discovering this about him. The waiter would take us to one table. No, wouldn't work. He didn't feel safe. Did she take us to another table? No, it didn't work. So there were times where we would go travel in this restaurant to 4 different places, and we're like, nope, sorry, can we sit over there? Nope, sorry, can we sit? So it got really irritating and frustrating on my part, and probably on his part too, because he's like, why? Like, we're still in this discovery stage, of like, why? Why can't we just sit here? And so it became a source of irritation. And I'll even go as far to say, like, even today when we go into restaurants, now I know to pick the restaurant or pick the seating that is farthest in the back, but he can have his back to the wall and he can look out. So I know that now, but it's taken years of understanding. There were also
fighting.
That's another, yes, true. But even when I would forget, there were times where like we'd be at a restaurant with people, and that was kind of frustrating too. And like it was one of those things that we had to let the whole family in on because we would go out with family. There was a birthday celebration or something, and they don't understand that he has to have his back to the wall. They don't understand, like his needs at that point in time because we hadn't shared that. So it was just like a stress, like complete stress, thinking, okay, I know he's going to blow up or he's going to feel very, very scared. And for men, fear turns into anger. Okay, like. Women realize that, okay? They're not angry, they're just scared. So his fear was turning into anger, and we were like, what is happening, when we were at these events with families? And so finally we kind of honed it into over time as we discovered, it was the situation. He didn't feel comfortable if he couldn't have his eyes on the door and, it fan out, his view fan out. So this might seem really, really minuscule, and petty, but this is a big deal for people who have PTSD. It's a huge deal. So if you go to dinner with somebody in your family who has PTSD, ask them where they would be more comfortable, or ask them, ask the spouse, hey, where would he like to sit? Or, just automatically know that they want to not be in the center of the restaurant. It's huge. It's huge, and it speaks volumes to them.
Speaking that, going right off of speaking volumes. Okay, so how did I feel during these times as we were learning these things? Okay, so I felt that she's the only person who knows me, right? And she should kind of be taking note and understand that she needs to speak for me. She's my spokesperson in family situations, especially because my kids had to go use the bathroom. I took the girls to the bathroom. She didn't. I took him to the bathroom. I guarded that door. I was outside that door. Nobody. And my face, my expression, my demeanor. I was a bodyguard at that door. So that means she had to pick the seating for us. But if I come back and I feel like, well, did you even talk to people? It felt like it was like a slap in the face to me.
Right.
And then of course that made me angry because I'm like, you don't care enough. You're not even trying to understand. You're not even caring to realize, I don't like to sit out there in the middle like that,
But what he didn't realize was that I am still trying to find my bearings in this. I'm still trying to figure out really like, is this a really big deal? Is it not? Is he going to be understanding of, and that's when a conversation had to happen between him and I. And there were many times where we would come home from a restaurant, remember? And we would just fight. We would just fight. Like even if we went out with friends, remember when we lived in North Carolina we'd go out with friends, we would try to have a good time in the setting, but we would come home and just be like, okay, well, you didn't understand where I was coming from, and I didn't understand where he was coming from, and he didn't feel safe, he felt vulnerable in that open space. It was one of those things we had to have a conversation with each other.
Okay, so Marlo told you that when men are scared, it turns into anger. So it translates to anger. Well, when women get angry when they don't feel like they could be supportive. Okay, for men, you guys out there, your spouse is not really angry at you; it's angry at the helplessness.
Right.
And I'm being unable to provide that support or being helped because they want to. I strongly believe that if you're married, if you're with your significant other, you want to be as much of a help as possible. You may not understand the situation, but you want to be supportive and be there and do what you can to help alleviate it a little bit. Make yourself feel useful, right?
Right.
Well, I didn't communicate that, and usually all of our, as you heard a little bit, it was a lot of eating each other, not knowing, both angry, but no one speaking. I'm scared, because who's gonna say I'm scared, right? And then the woman's like, well, I can't be supportive. I don't know how to support you. I don't know how to work with you. You're freaking me out. You're pissing me off. You make me angry. And you're just like, screw it.
Yeah.
I don't even know why. And then you got these questions. I don't know why we're together. I don't know how we made it this far. I don't blah, 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 and all these other things. If you can't function now, screw you, I'm out.
Right.
And then all that from,
all these wedges. See, it was a wedge, all in our marriage. And it created this toxic environment to where we were both pissed off at each other. We didn't understand each other, where we were coming from. At that point, we didn't even want to hear each other because we were both touchy. We were both like, he was too sensitive, I was too sensitive, I didn't understand, he didn't understand. Like, it was just complete chaos. And I know that some of you who are experiencing PTSD in your family feels that way. I know that it's just like,
walk on eggshells.
Yeah, you feel like you just cannot have a good day. All right? We know that. We have been there. And to be honest with you, there's some times, even today, where we feel like, okay, like, what's going on? We're not meshing. We're not, there's days on end where like it feels like there's wedges put in, and it's just, that's where you have to communicate. That's where you have to say, okay, I'm letting my pride fall down. Let's have a conversation, heart to heart. And that might sound super gay, and that might sound super weak. That might sound really, stupid. But at the same time, you've got to let your pride fall down so you can hear. And sometimes it's not even you talking. Sometimes it's you listening.
Oh my God, and that's such a big thing. Earlier videos and stuff we talked about. Feeling like you're heard, okay, is important. I call it male menopause symptom. Whenever guys dealing with, especially military guys, they may not admit it, but their mood swing is just like that. It's a menopause. It's just up one moment, good the next, and then terrible the another, and good the next. You just cannot predict when that hammer would drop, right? And so for you, the woman, you're on eggshells. You just don't know. So it's like you on your period, and the guy's got to deal with it. He doesn't know the week before or the week of. He's like, what the hell's going on? You know, he's confused. So, guys, the way you feel about her being on her period is the way she feels about you at PTSD.
I am so glad you're saying this.
Okay?
Round of applause.
I'm not thinking about it. But the point of the matter is to understand where you are at.
Yes.
All right? And it's just it really comes down to conversation.
Right. And understanding where you're at doesn't mean you have to know the ins and outs of it. If it's a bad day, you can say, listen, I'm having a bad day. I'm having a bad day.
All right? And that was one of those things, too. Put a time limit on it. Because it drove her crazy. If I was having a bad day, it could last 3-4 days. Maybe 5.
Oh, my goodness.
A week.
I was like, is your bad day over yet?
Not really. That wasn't like that. It was like, I'm out. I'm tired of living in this mess of house. You know?
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, you know, put a time limit on it. Because what I learned is if I don't put a timer on it, if I don't put like a time as how long, hey, I'm having a bad day, give me a moment. How long is that moment?
Right.
Be realistic. Oh, it's gonna,
Right.
you know, give me 2 hours.
Don't take advantage. Don't take advantage of that moment and milk it. But be honest with yourself. I'm having a bad day. Let's get back to this at 6 tonight. Or you know what? Let's talk about this later this evening at 10. You know, have a time to where you can come back together and you're cooled down. You're able to communicate and listen. You're able to talk it out. I think that's what really helped us. You know, like I would give him time, but his time would just be days and days. And then all in turn, like while he's taking his time to recuperate or whatever, here I am feeling like, you know, alone, and more bitterness and more anger is growing inside of me in the alone time that he's taking, you know, that he's giving me. So it's so important that you don't have so much time to where you're just growing roots of bitterness and anger, but you are, you have a time to cool down, and then you can talk about it and listen.
Rule of thumb is 30 minutes or an hour, check back in. You know?
Yeah.
Just check back in. Be like, no, it's still going. And be like, okay, well, because in that time you need to be actively working to better yourself, change your attitude, figure what's going on out.
Right.
And then when that time comes back to connect again, you're able to communicate that. And the other person, when that happens, you shut up, let that person finish.
Yeah.
I'm a talker. So she's like, well, you've been speaking for like 10 minutes. I can't remember it all, right? Well, you know what?
Yes.
Be a little patient and you learn how to shorten those sentences. So, hey, you know, we've come a long ways, but we still got to work on it. And these are things we've learned. These are things we've struggled through. And we want to offer this olive branch to you. Be like, hey, you're not alone. You're not the only one going through it, but there is hope. Yeah. And as long as you press on and communicate, doors will open up. Things will become easier, and you'll learn how to adapt to this lifestyle.
Right. And communication can be, listen, I'm really struggling right now. Listen, like, you know, I know you're struggling too. I'm struggling as well. You know, like have that open door communication to where there's nothing that you could say to make that other person love you less. Do you understand? Like we had to come to that place. And it took a while. It took a lot of work. It took a lot of practice. But we came to that place where there's nothing that you can tell me that will make me stop loving you. Nothing. So we've come to that place, and it's a beautiful place. There's some things that are hurtful that's said. There's some things that are really raw because there's emotion, you know, that he's dealing with and I'm dealing with. And, you know, sometimes it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But then you put your guard down and you listen. You listen. All right? That's our word for you guys today. There's hope at the end of this, okay? Listen to each other. Communicate. You know, we still sit in the corner of restaurants, okay? To this day, it's not like this is a story of overcoming and overcoming to where he's now sitting in the middle of restaurants, because he's still not there.
It's adapting.
He's still not there.
It's a story of adapting.
Yes, and we're working through it still, okay? So just know that it's not always going to be. I was telling my 9-year-old this morning, because she's, dealing with hormones and all that other stuff. It happened so young, so she was super, emotional this morning. So I was just telling her, listen, it's not going to be like this tomorrow. Like, today is today, okay? Let's work through it today, but don't think you have a bad life because you had a bad day, or you had a bad month, or you had a bad 5 days, or what have you, okay? It's not a bad life, all right? It's a bad moment, okay? So hang on to that hope. It's gonna get better. Keep on believing that.
All right, and check in on the next video. It will just be me talking about how guys with PTSD, about the support system. I mentioned a pillar or two. So just tune back in or follow the next video and just listen to it, see if it applies to you. That's great. Not that works too. Share it with someone who you think it will benefit. Yeah. And as always, leave a message, text, or not text, but just leave a message below and let us know your concerns or something we could elaborate more on.
Yeah.
To
let us know
help
where
you
you're at.
All right.
Let us know how it's going for you guys in the PTSD world. Okay?
All right.
Peace out.